Hey puzzle friends, it's Bree. We're back with another puzzle. Today we're doing one from Ravensburger. This is part of their Disney Collector's Edition. It's a 1,000 piece Winnie the Pooh puzzle. This is actually my first time doing a Ravensburger. Actually, is it Ravensburger or is it Ravensburger? I've heard it both ways. I do follow Karen Puzzles, and I know that she's works with the brand. She's made puzzles for them and everything, and she says Ravensburger, so maybe it's Ravensburger. I'll go with Ravensburger. So yeah, this is actually my first time doing a Ravensburger, I'm pretty sure. I've been doing puzzles a long time, but I don't think I've ever done one from this brand before today. I'm really glad that I've seen quite a few people do Ravensburger's puzzles prior to me jumping into this one, because something that they all talk about pretty often is the amount of puzzle dust that Ravensburger's puzzles have. And if I had not known about this previously, I would have been pretty upset, because I usually just kind of dump my puzzles out onto my table, but I didn't do that this time. I kept all the pieces inside of the box lid to kind of keep the dust in one spot. But honestly, dealing with the puzzle dust was kind of the biggest issue that I had with this whole puzzle, which is great, especially if you saw my last puzzle experience. I'll link it if you didn't see it. It was very interesting. This puzzle that we're doing today was much different than the last one, so it was good with me. So normally I dump out all my pieces onto my puzzle table, like I mentioned, and then I'll go through and I'll sort through each individual piece and try to filter out all of the edges, and then I build the edges, and then I kind of go from there. This time, because I didn't want to dump all the pieces out, I ended up just kind of picking from the box and trying to find as many of the edges as I could. So I started with the edges, and then I had a little pile going of some of the greenery, and then some of the white from the table, and then I had little piles for each of the characters going. It was pretty easy to differentiate these kind of main aspects that I started to pull from first, because pretty much the white is there's only white in the table. There's no white really anywhere else in the puzzle, so that was pretty easy to pick out. And then the greenery, there is a lot of greenery, but I figured let me just take it all out and just put it in kind of one big pile that I could deal with as it comes. And then the other characters, they're pretty easy to differentiate. Like Piglet's all pink, Eeyore's all grayish blue, so those are pretty easy to pick out too. Piglet was the first character that I put together. He was the easiest to see and figure out where all the pieces were, so I got him done pretty quickly. I got most of him done. I went ahead and pulled out the white table pieces because I thought that they would be pretty easy to put together. It turns out I was wrong. It was actually possibly one of the trickier parts of this puzzle. So I started on it, and then I kind of set it aside. And then after that, I was kind of picking through the edges and trying to put it together more and more as much as I could. The only character that I didn't really have a separate pile for was Gopher. I didn't even really notice that I didn't have a pile for him until I started trying to put the white pieces together, and I realized that most of Gopher was just mixed in with my white pieces. So you'll see it's a lot of me going back and forth between kind of going in the box and trying to pull out pieces and separating them into whatever kind of general pile I think that they belong into, and then trying to pick a spot, work on that spot, and get as much of that pile put in as I possibly can. Tigger wasn't too hard to put together. Once I got enough pieces of him pulled out of the box that I could start to piece it together, it was pretty easy to figure out which stripes were on which side of his body and put them all together. I did do a lot of kind of switching back and forth between sections because I kept getting stuck, and rather than getting frustrated, I just kind of moved on. The other thing that made this puzzle a little bit tricky is that the image itself is really in that kind of true-to-life Winnie the Pooh style, and so because of that, there are kind of almost unnecessary lines in certain places. It's very kind of sketchbooky, and so there's lines places that you wouldn't necessarily expect there to be lines. So sometimes it was hard to indicate if the line that you're seeing on a piece, if that indicates that it is the end of something, or if it's just a random line that's just within the image. The next thing I spent a good chunk of time on was Eeyore. I didn't realize how large the characters were within the puzzle, if that makes any sense. Obviously, I know they're kind of like the main point of the puzzle, but for some reason, Eeyore being this huge was really like, it was taking me out. It was confusing me. The trees and the ribbons and the confetti took me a long time because sometimes a ribbon piece looked like it belonged in one part, but it actually belonged to something else. And there was a lot of kind of having to rotate pieces to figure out which direction it's supposed to be in on the puzzle. I also saved the flags pretty much for last. I figured whatever didn't belong to a balloon or a ribbon, that would, whatever's left has to be a flag pretty much. And then you'll see a reoccurring issue that I was having. I'm not even really issue, just my own personal struggle was trying to get that brown stool that Gopher's on, and then the two chairs that Christopher Robin and Piglet and Roo are on. Because one, those two purple chairs, they're basically the exact same, especially as far as the color is concerned, so it was hard to figure out which one went where. And then on top of that, I don't know what was going on, but me and that stool that Gopher's on, we were struggling. I could not figure out what was going on with that stool for the longest. And I did try to do something a bit different with this video. I did purchase a top-down tripod so that way I could film kind of a nice overhead view and then also get some kind of closer up shots. And I was using two different cameras for this. And the camera that I was using for the top-down shots is the same camera that I typically use. And so because of that, I didn't really bother to check the footage as I was going because I just assumed it was good. That was clearly a mistake. I don't know if the lens was dirty or if it was just my settings were off. Something was off clearly. So I do apologize that in those top-down shots, it just looks weird. I feel like I keep trying to fix or improve one aspect of my videos, and then I end up making something else worse. So I'm trying. And every video I'm going to try to fix what I did wrong so that we can keep having better and better quality. So forgive me that this one it's a little rough in some spots. I'm actually so glad that I got this puzzle. My little sister actually got this for me for my birthday, which was a few weeks ago now. It was really cute that she got me this Winnie the Pooh puzzle. It seems to be Pooh's birthday. I assume it's Pooh's birthday because Kanga is kind of bringing the cake kind of to Pooh Bear. Maybe it's Tigger's birthday, but I'm going to say it's Pooh's birthday. I thought it was cute because it kind of felt like I was celebrating my birthday with Pooh, so that was nice. I love Disney. I don't know if I would quite qualify myself as a Disney adult, but I do really enjoy Disney overall. I love the princesses. I have a, love-hate relationship with Marvel. I think we all do at this point. But like I said, Winnie the Pooh is my favorite. And actually, even though I grew up in Florida, lived there for most of my life, and I live in Georgia now, I had not been to Disney World ever until recently, this past summer. My husband took me as kind of like an early birthday gift, so I was so excited. The first day we did Magic Kingdom. If you're unfamiliar, Magic Kingdom is kind of like the main park. Think of like the princesses, the big castle, all of that stuff is inside the Magic Kingdom. And so we were walking around, we did some rides, did some things, and then we ended up at the Winnie the Pooh ride. So we're standing in line, and as we're standing there, we look over to the side, and we see a Pooh and a Tigger like lining up to take pictures with people. And so if you've ever been to the parks, you know that as soon as the characters start to come out, a line will form. And so I really wanted a picture with them, but we were already in line for the ride, and there was already a line forming for the character pictures. And we didn't want to get out of the line that we had already been standing in for, 20 minutes or so, just to get into the other line and then not be able to get the picture because the characters will only be out for so long because it's, Florida in July. It's 90 something degrees. Who knows how hot it is inside those costumes? So they'll only be out for 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time. And so we didn't want to get out of the ride line to get in the picture line and then end up having to get back in the ride line without a picture and having to kind of start all over. So I just kind of watched them from the side. I said, oh, I wish I could get a picture, knowing that I probably wouldn't see them again for the rest of the day. So we get on the ride eventually. And has anybody ever ridden the Winnie the Pooh ride at Disney World? If you have, can you please explain to me what is happening? There is like an audio track going, and I don't know if we just couldn't quite hear it all the way, or if we were just like overwhelmed. Point is, we were confused. The ride is basically one of those ones where you're kind of sitting in like a big kind of cart going around the track inside of a enclosed space. And again, I feel like Pooh was getting chased at one point. And then there's a part where Pooh just kind of starts... We weren't sure if Pooh died or if we had missed something, because there's a point towards the end where there's like Pooh, and then it's almost like his soul leaves his body. And we were like, what is this? Is this a children's ride? Did we just witness Pooh die? We were so confused. So if you know what ride I'm talking about and you know the story, please let me know, because I legitimately don't know what I witnessed. So we finished with the Winnie the Pooh ride. We go about the rest of our day. And then towards the afternoon, we realized that to get dinner, we had to make a reservation at one of the restaurants. We weren't going to do anything super, super fancy, but we still want to make a reservation. So we just picked some random restaurant, reserved our spots, and then went about the rest of our day. So then time for dinner comes. We go to the restaurant we picked. And as we're going inside, the hostess, she asked us if we knew that it was Friends Day, and we were like, no, we don't know what that means. And then she told us that Pooh and his friends were here to kind of like have dinner with everybody, and I was so excited. The main things I wanted out of this trip were to have fun, of course, but to see some of the characters. And then I was so close to Pooh and Tigger just a few hours ago, but I knew I probably wouldn't see them again. And then here I was at this random restaurant that we just happened to pick out, and all the characters were there. Well, not all of them, but it was Pooh, Tigger, Eeyore, and Piglet, which was more than enough for me. So we sit down to eat, and then as you're eating, one by one, the characters kind of come around to the tables and hug you and take pictures and all those sorts of things. So I was literally like a kid in the candy store. I was so excited when Pooh came around. When all of them came around, it was just such a great time. The people in the costumes, of course, were super nice. They let you take all the pictures. They're kind of funny. They kind of play around with you. So I went from having a pretty spectacular day with just like this one slight disappointment that I was so close to Pooh and Tigger, but I couldn't get a picture with them, to getting multiple individual pictures with all of them. And it was me and my husband, so that was really nice. So yeah, that kind of rounded out the first day of us being at Disney. We were there for 2 days, but we only did 1 day at Magic Kingdom. And so the fact that I was able to do all the other things, ride the Winnie the Pooh ride, and then be able to hug and take pictures with Pooh, Tigger, Piglet, and Eeyore, it was amazing. But back to this puzzle. Initially, I had started pulling out the white pieces way back at the beginning of this puzzle because I thought it would be fairly easy to get the white pieces all done, but it actually ended up being a little bit difficult, so I ended up kind of filling in some here and there as I went, but a lot of it I kind of did at the end. The other thing that seemed almost deceptive about this puzzle is obviously there's a lot of green, and I knew that kind of going into it, but there's also a lot of brown and a lot of yellow. And when you're just looking at the puzzle initially, you almost don't really realize it, you don't really think about it. But as I was doing it, I was like, oh no, I don't know what goes where. So with the yellows, sometimes you couldn't quite tell if it was a yellow for Pooh Bear, or if it was a yellow for a Christopher Robin's t-shirt, or if it was a piece of rabbit. And then there are some yellow balloons as well. Although the balloons were usually pretty easy to figure out what was a balloon versus what was something else. Tigger's belly is also basically yellow, so that was another aspect that kind of threw me off. And then I didn't realize going into this how much brown there was, because you have the brown, that huge chunk of the tree trunk, and then you have Owl, who is brown, you have the little bits of Rue and Kinga that you can see that are brown, and then also you have the flooring and then Christopher Robin's hair. And so some pieces did have some texture to it, so you could kind of figure out if it was floor versus if it was a character. But some pieces were just kind of brown. And then also the texturing of the individual piece, sometimes Christopher Robin's hair looked just like Robin. No. Sometimes Christopher Robin's hair looked just like Owl. So sometimes I was kind of going back and forth to figure out which one belonged to who. Okay, no, I'm convinced that it's Pooh's birthday because there's honey pots all over the place. He's digging in, so this has to be his birthday. Overall, I really enjoyed working on this puzzle. Like I mentioned, Winnie the Pooh is my absolute favorite character, so having this puzzle, it being his birthday, it being my birthday, I thought was really sweet. The pieces fit together nicely, didn't have really any issues of false fits. I don't think I had any false fits at all. And that is the one kind of saving grace of having those big sections of brown or green or the yellows or anything like that, is that I knew if a piece went there or not pretty much immediately because it just would not fit at all with the other pieces. Honestly, I was kind of surprised that it took me till just about the end to get Tigger put together. I don't know why, but I could not find the pieces that filled his face in, but we got there eventually. So we're finishing up with Tigger, a bit of the tree is left, a little bit of the green, and then I was all done. And like I said, I had a really great time with this puzzle. It was my first Ravensburger. It was an image I really, really enjoyed. I honestly didn't have much of any complaints. The pieces had a nice kind of, a bit of a gloss to it, but were mostly matte. So again, compared to my last puzzle that I worked on, I didn't really have any issue with glare. The pieces had a nice thickness to them. They weren't super, super thick, but they also weren't super thin. The pieces fit together nicely. Once this was done, it was 27 by 20 inches. Part of me kind of wants to frame this one, but I think I'm going to take it apart. That way I can put it together again sometime later, and then maybe one day I'll frame it. So let me know what your favorite Ravensburger puzzle is. And please let me know if you know the lore behind that Winnie the Pooh ride. I really want to know. Like and subscribe if you're liking the content. And I'll see you in the next video.